The air was thick with smoke, so dense it seemed to press against the windows like a living thing, creeping into every crack and seam. From the living room window, Marcus Collins could see the Hollywood Hills turned into a seething hellscape. The fire licked upward, devouring dry brush and skeletal trees in its path, and every gust of wind carried embers that glowed like falling stars, only these stars killed. Inside the house, it was quiet in a way that didn't feel natural. The electricity had gone out hours earlier, leaving only the dim orange flicker of the inferno outside to paint the walls. The hum of appliances, the soft whoosh of central air, the normal domestic soundtrack of life, all of it was gone. The Collins family stood in the silence, broken only by the occasional crash of something outside collapsing in flames, and the faint animal cries that carried on the wind. "Dad," Ashley's voice cracked as she gripped the sleeve of her father's shirt. She was only 11, but the whites of her eyes looked older, stretched wide with fear. "Is it going to get us?" Marcus didn't answer right away. His gaze was locked on the far ridge, where firelight spilled down like liquid fire. He forced himself to sound steady. "We're safe in here. The fire won't jump this far." But even as he said it, he wasn't sure. He could smell the wood, the plastic, the life outside burning. And worse, beneath that acrid smoke, there was something else. A musk. Animal. Predatory. Behind him, Emily clutched their youngest, 6-year-old Noah, against her hip. He was crying softly into her shoulder, his small fingers trembling as they dug into her sweater. She met Marcus's eyes, and the silent communication passed between them, "We need to keep them calm. No matter what." Marcus turned toward the kitchen, searching for bottled water. The taps had gone dry by late afternoon, and the heat inside was rising. When he opened the cabinet, he saw the last few plastic bottles stacked like soldiers awaiting execution. He grabbed 2 and handed one to Emily. That was when he heard it. A sharp yip, carried on the smoke-laden wind. Then another. Then the long, mournful howl that rose above the crackle of fire. Ashley gasped and pressed closer to him. "Coyotes," she whispered. Marcus moved back to the window, careful not to let his children see the way his hands shook. Down by the edge of their driveway, in the shifting light of the fire, movement stirred. Eyes glowed, reflective, low to the ground, too many to count. They darted between the shadows, bodies lean and ragged. The pack had come down from the ridges, driven from their hunting grounds by the fire. But these animals weren't fleeing. They were circling. "Marcus," Emily said, her voice tight. "Tell me you see that." "I see them," he muttered. His throat was dry as ash. There were at least 7 of them, maybe more. Their silhouettes slinked in and out of the smoke, their paws silent on the ash-coated ground. The fire had driven them mad, he could sense it in their movements, too quick, too deliberate. Coyotes usually scattered at the sight of people, but not these. Not tonight. "They're not going to come inside, right?" Ashley asked. Her voice was small, fragile, the question hanging like a prayer. Marcus swallowed. "The doors are locked. Windows shut. They'll keep moving." But he knew it wasn't true. The coyotes weren't moving on. They were waiting. Watching. Testing the edges of the family's sanctuary, driven closer by fear and hunger, yet emboldened by the chaos of the fire. A deep boom shook the ground, the sound of a propane tank exploding somewhere up the canyon. The children screamed. The lights of the fire surged, revealing the coyotes' faces in full. Their teeth gleamed wet. Their fur was matted with ash and blood. One limped, but it didn't slow down, its eyes burned hotter than the flames behind it. Noah whimpered. "They're gonna eat us." Emily held him tighter. "No, baby. No. Mommy and Daddy won't let that happen." But her words quavered. The scratching came next. A scraping sound at the back fence. Then another at the garage door. Claws against wood. Testing. Searching for weakness. Marcus's chest tightened. They weren't just trapped by the fire. They were prey caught between two predators, the flames closing in and the animals outside, growing bolder with every second. Upstairs, he ordered, grabbing a flashlight from the counter. We need to get upstairs. Now. The family huddled together, their footsteps heavy on the stairs as the house groaned in the heat. Down below, the coyotes yipped again, higher, shriller, impatient. By the time Marcus closed the bedroom door behind them, the howling had begun. Not just one voice, but many. Rising together, echoing through the smoky night, a chorus of hunger and rage. The Collins family clung to each other in the dark as outside, the predators circled. And the fire drew closer. The second floor of the Collins house was hotter than the first, the smoke pressing in through the roof vents, leaving a bitter film on their tongues. Marcus set the flashlight on the dresser, its weak yellow beam casting long, nervous shadows across the walls. Ashley sat cross-legged on the carpet, hugging her knees, eyes darting at every creak and groan of the house. Noah lay on Emily's lap, his cheeks streaked with soot and dried tears, his breath coming in shallow little gasps. Marcus paced. The adrenaline in his chest refused to burn itself out. He kept replaying the way the coyotes had moved, their glowing eyes watching from the yard as if they had already claimed the family as theirs. A loud thump from below made everyone jump. Emily grabbed Marcus's arm. They're trying to get in. Marcus froze, listening. At first there was silence. Then, scratch, 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 the unmistakable sound of claws against the back door. Followed by a low growl that vibrated against the siding of the house. Noah whimpered, covering his ears. Make them stop, Mommy. They'll get tired and leave, Marcus said automatically. He knew he was lying the second the words left his lips. These weren't normal coyotes. They weren't curious or cautious. They were desperate. Hunger mixed with madness. The flashlight flickered. Emily's face went pale in its weak glow. If the batteries die, we'll be in total dark. Marcus clenched his jaw. We'll manage. Sun will come up in a few hours. Ashley spoke suddenly, her voice flat, almost detached. They don't care about the sun. They're not scared of us. They're waiting. Emily looked at her daughter sharply. Don't say that. But Marcus knew Ashley was right. The coyotes weren't moving on. They weren't scavengers tonight. They were predators. Another thud shook the house. This time, from the garage. Metal against metal, the sound of something testing the panel door. The family went still. Even Noah, half asleep in terror, buried his face deeper into his mother's chest. The smoke outside thickened, curling against the windows. It made the glow of the wildfire appear as if the world itself was burning beyond their walls. Occasionally, the fire let out a low roar as another hillside collapsed into flame, reminding them that danger pressed in from both sides. Marcus, Emily whispered. If the fire comes closer, we can't stay here. We'll suffocate, or worse. He nodded slowly. He had thought the same thing, but saying it out loud made it heavier. To leave meant stepping into a landscape crawling with predators and flame. To stay meant waiting to be swallowed. A howl cut through the air, closer this time. Then another answered from the opposite side of the house. The pack was splitting up, surrounding them. Ashley covered her ears, rocking slightly. Make it stop, make it stop. Emily rubbed her daughter's back, murmuring soothing lies she didn't believe herself. Marcus turned to the window. He parted the curtain just enough to peer outside. His stomach dropped. In the smoky haze, just beyond the faint outline of the pool deck, 3 coyotes stood shoulder to shoulder, staring directly up at the window. Their eyes glowed like small lamps, unblinking. Their fur looked singed, patches missing, exposing raw flesh that shimmered wet in the firelight. One's jaw hung slightly open, tongue blackened at the edges as though it had bitten fire itself. "Jesus Christ," Marcus whispered, letting the curtain fall back. "What is it?" Emily asked. He hesitated. "They're closer. At the pool." As if on cue, a sharp yelp rang out from below, followed by the sound of claws skittering across the deck. Something heavy slammed against the sliding glass door, rattling it in its track. The children screamed. Emily held them close, whispering frantically. Marcus grabbed the flashlight and a metal baseball bat from the closet. His grip felt slippery from sweat. "If they break through, we fight." Emily looked at him like she wanted to scream at his insanity, but she said nothing. Maybe she understood there was no other choice. Another slam shook the door downstairs, this time followed by a high, frenzied chorus of yips and snarls. They weren't testing anymore. They were trying to get inside. The fire outside roared louder, embers scattering across the lawn like sparks from hell itself. The house creaked under the heat. And in the flickering dark, the Collins family realized something far worse than fire had trapped them. They were being hunted. The house had never felt so fragile. Every groan of the wood, every rattle of the glass seemed to promise collapse. The Collins family huddled in the upstairs bedroom, listening as the predators circled below. Another crash against the sliding glass door shook the floorboards. A wild chorus of snarls erupted, followed by frantic scratching that grated through the silence. "They're gonna break it," Ashley whispered. Her arms were wrapped so tight around her knees that her fingernails dug into her skin. "They're gonna come in." "No," Marcus said firmly, gripping the baseball bat. "The glass is reinforced. It won't break." But even as he said it, another slam echoed through the house, and he imagined the thin barrier of glass shattering into shards. He forced his jaw shut to stop the tremor in his voice. Emily rocked Noah gently, though her own body shook. "They're animals," she whispered, as if to herself. "Animals don't plan. They don't work together like this." Marcus caught her eyes. Neither of them wanted to admit the truth, but it was there, unspoken. The coyotes weren't acting like animals. Not anymore. A sound cut through the chaos, a low, rumbling growl that didn't rise or fall. It just stayed, vibrating through the house like a warning. The hair on Marcus's arm stood up. "They're not afraid," he muttered. "Not of the fire, not of us." The room went silent for a long moment, save for Noah's quiet sobs. Then, thump, 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 footsteps across the roof. Ashley gasped. "They're on top of us." Marcus's head snapped upward. Above, claws scraped against the shingles, circling. The roof groaned, embers drifting down the sides of the house from the wildfire still advancing up the ridge. They weren't just trying to get in through the doors and windows. They were testing every angle. Emily pressed her children closer, whispering, don't listen," but her own eyes were wide with terror. Another slam downstairs. Then a new sound, something sharper, more insidious, the creak of wood giving way. Marcus darted to the hallway and peered down the stairs. His stomach clenched. At the bottom of the steps, through the dim glow of firelight filtering in, the silhouette of a coyote's muzzle pushed through a growing crack in the doorframe. Its teeth gleamed wet, snapping at the air as it forced itself against the wood. "Marcus," Emily's voice broke behind him. He didn't think. He ran down 2 steps and swung the bat hard against the frame. The wood splintered, the animal yelped, and the muzzle retreated. For a moment, silence followed. Then the howling began again. Louder this time. Angrier. Marcus backed up, chest heaving, heart hammering in his throat. The family was under siege, and the walls were beginning to fail. Suddenly, Noah cried out. Emily spun around, panic in her voice. "What is it? What's wrong?" The boy pointed at the window. His tiny hand shook. Marcus rushed back into the bedroom. The window pane glowed. Faintly orange, not just from the wildfire, but from movement. Shapes. He stepped closer, flashlight trembling in his grip. And then he saw them. Four coyotes, pressed against the side of the house, paws braced against the wall, their bodies blackened by ash. They weren't scratching, they were climbing. Climbing toward the second floor. Their claws dug into the wood, their jaws snapping silently as they dragged themselves upward. "Jesus Christ," Marcus whispered. Ashley screamed. Emily's face turned bloodless. "They're not supposed to do that. Coyotes don't climb." "They don't." But they did. Their bodies clung to the siding like grotesque shadows, inching higher. The first reached the window, pressing its nose against the glass. Its eyes glowed like dying embers, unblinking, locked on the family inside. It opened its mouth and exhaled, fogging the glass with a wet smear before dragging its tongue slowly across the pane. Noah shrieked, hiding his face. Ashley buried herself in Emily's arms. Marcus gripped the bat tighter, his throat dry. Every instinct screamed at him to swing, to fight, but the window was the only barrier left. If he broke it, he'd let them in. The coyote's teeth scraped against the glass, leaving streaks of saliva and ash. Its body convulsed with hunger. Another reached the frame, claws tapping against the pane, a steady click, click, click like fingernails on bone. And in that moment, Marcus realized the truth he had been denying since the fire began. The pack wasn't disoriented. They were hunting. And the Collins family was trapped inside the cage. The house no longer felt like a home. It was a coffin waiting to be sealed. The scratching on the siding grew into a frenzy. Marcus watched in horror as the coyotes clung to the walls like monstrous insects, their bodies twitching with unnatural strength. Their claws gouged strips of wood free, raining splinters onto the patio below. "Marcus, what do we do?" Emily's voice cracked, sharp with desperation. She held Noah so tight the boy whimpered, struggling for air. Ashley clung to her mother's waist, trembling. He forced himself to think past the panic hammering in his chest. If the coyotes broke the glass, it would all be over. He had one job: keep them outside. Marcus swung the bat against the window frame, not the glass. The thud startled the coyotes. One lost its grip, yelping as it fell 2 stories into the smoking yard below. The others scrambled but held on, snarling, their teeth snapping wildly. "They won't stop," Marcus muttered, his own voice sounding foreign to him. "They're not going to stop." The smoke outside thickened, curling into the bedroom through the vents. The air stung their eyes and burned their throats. Every breath carried the taste of ash. The wildfire wasn't waiting, it was climbing the ridge, the sky a boiling sea of flame. And then it came, the sound they had been dreading. Glass breaking. It wasn't the upstairs window. It was the sliding glass door downstairs. The children screamed as the sound of shattering echoed through the house. Then, silence. A silence more terrifying than the noise. Marcus froze, bat raised, staring down the dark staircase. The glow of fire spilled faintly across the living room floor, illuminating shards of glass glittering like teeth. Shadows moved inside. Fast. Low to the ground. "They're in," Emily whispered. Her knees buckled. Marcus turned back, voice urgent. "Get in the bathroom. Now. Lock the door." Emily dragged the children down the hall. Their small footsteps slapped against the floorboards as Marcus stood at the top of the stairs, gripping the bat so hard the wood dug into his palms. A snarl rose from below. Then the sound of claws clicking against hardwood. 1 step. 2. 3. Marcus swung the flashlight toward the stairs. The beam caught a pair of glowing eyes. The coyote froze halfway up the staircase, its body crouched low, lips peeled back from jagged, blood-stained teeth. Its fur was patchy, burned in places, its ribs protruding like blades beneath the skin. And yet it didn't look weak. It looked unstoppable. Marcus's chest tightened. He swung the bat down hard, striking the railing just inches from the animal's face. The crack echoed through the house. The coyote didn't flinch. It didn't retreat. It just stared, unblinking. Then, slowly, it began climbing again. Panic surged in Marcus's throat. He roared and charged, swinging the bat with everything he had. Wood collided with bone. The coyote yelped, tumbling backward down the stairs. Its body slammed into the floor below with a sickening thud. Silence. Then, another growl. Not one voice. Many. From the living room. From the kitchen. From the hallway. The pack had entered. Marcus staggered back into the hall, slamming the bedroom door shut just as Emily turned the lock on the bathroom. The children were crying, their voices rising with every scrape and thud echoing through the house. "They're everywhere," Emily gasped, pressing her back to the door. Her chest rose and fell in ragged bursts. "They're inside." Marcus leaned against the wall, sweat and soot dripping into his eyes. He listened. The sounds were everywhere now, the slap of paws, the crash of furniture overturned, the tearing of fabric as claws shredded everything in their path. The house was alive with violence. And then, above the chaos, came the howling. Inside the walls. Inside their home. A chilling chorus that made the children bury their faces against their mother's chest. Ashley whispered, voice hollow, "They're calling to each other." The flashlight flickered once, then died. The room plunged into darkness. Marcus gripped the bat tighter, his only weapon now. His heart hammered as he strained to hear past the children's cries. Footsteps padded softly outside the bedroom door. Slow. Deliberate. The doorknob rattled. Emily gasped, covering Noah's mouth to stifle his scream. Scratch. 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 The sound of claws dragging down the wood, marking it. Testing it. Marcus stepped forward, bat raised, ready to swing the second the door burst open. But the coyotes didn't force it. They scratched, circled, and then padded away, retreating down the hall. It should have been relief. But it wasn't. Because the pack wasn't retreating. They were waiting. And the Collins family realized with horror that this wasn't an attack. It was the beginning of the hunt. The house was no longer theirs. It belonged to the fire, to the smoke, and most of all, to the pack. Marcus stood rigid in the dark hallway, listening. The scratching on the door had stopped, but the sounds hadn't. The coyotes were moving through the lower floor, their claws skittering on the hardwood, their growls vibrating through the walls. Every now and then came the sound of glass crunching under paw or furniture crashing to the floor. The predators were dismantling their home, piece by piece, marking it as theirs. Emily sat against the bathroom door, arms tight around the children, whispering fragments of lullabies that came out broken. Ashley's eyes stared unblinking at the floor while Noah whimpered quietly into his mother's chest. Marcus forced himself to breathe evenly, though his pulse throbbed against his temples. He knew the coyotes hadn't given up on the second floor. They were waiting, circling, finding another way in. And when they came again, they wouldn't test. They'd take. The silence broke with a new sound. A creak above them. Marcus's head snapped upward. His stomach dropped. The roof. Emily looked up, too, her face stricken. No. God, no. The coyotes were back on top of the house, their claws dragging against shingles, their weight shifting across beams that groaned with every step. The smoke made it worse, blinding, choking, making each sound sharper, more menacing. Then came the first thud. Something heavy slammed onto the roof above the bedroom. Dust fell from the ceiling in little puffs. The children clung tighter to their mother, muffling their cries in her sweater. Marcus backed toward the bedroom window. He tugged at the curtain, peeking through. His breath caught. The hillside outside was burning alive. The fire was cresting the ridge, spilling toward their street like a glowing tide. Flames leapt across trees and rooftops, painting the night in an unholy orange. Embers swirled in the air like a blizzard of sparks. The house next door was already a torch, its windows bursting outward from the heat. They were running out of time. And then, crack. The sound came from above. Sharp. Final. Marcus barely had time to react before a section of the ceiling split. Ash and plaster rained down, stinging his skin. A jagged hole gaped open, and from it, a muzzle pushed through. Yellow eyes glared down into the room. Teeth snapped in the beam of firelight spilling through the smoke. Ashley screamed, high and piercing. Noah buried his head against Emily's chest. Marcus raised the bat. "Stay back," he roared, as if the words meant anything. He swung upward, connecting with the jaw. The coyote yelped, pulling back, but more weight pressed against the roof. Another thud. Another crack. The ceiling was breaking. "They're coming in." Emily cried. "Marcus, there." The hole widened. Claws tore through plaster, chunks falling onto the carpet. Another muzzle appeared, followed by frantic snarling. The predators clawed downward, desperate to breach. Marcus swung again, but there were too many. Every hit was answered with another paw, another set of teeth. Their howls filled the house, echoing through the rafters, blending with the roar of the fire outside. "We can't stay here," Emily shouted, her voice raw. "They'll tear through." Marcus knew she was right. But where could they go? Downstairs was crawling with coyotes. The yard was flames. Then he saw it. The bathroom window. Small, narrow, but it opened onto the roof. The roof that overlooked the street, the only possible path away from the burning house. He grabbed Emily's arm. "The window. Get the kids out." She stared at him like he'd lost his mind. "The roof? Marcus. Do it." His voice cracked with desperation. Another chunk of ceiling caved behind him. A paw swiped through the hole, claws missing his face by inches. Emily didn't argue again. She pulled the children toward the bathroom, fumbling with the tiny window. Smoke poured in the moment she forced it open, making them all cough violently. Ashley squeezed through first, her small body barely clearing the frame. Emily pushed Noah next, his cries muffled by the smoke. Then she climbed out after them, helping the children onto the slanted shingles. Marcus swung the bat one last time, shoving back the snapping muzzle of a coyote. Then he turned and scrambled into the bathroom, hauling himself through the window as claws tore through the ceiling behind him. The roof was hot under his hands, almost blistering. The air outside was worse, thick with smoke, glowing with embers. The house groaned beneath them, the flames creeping closer from every direction. Emily clutched the children against the slope of the shingles, her eyes wide, tear-streaked, terrified. And behind them, inside the house, the coyotes howled with triumph. The hunt was no longer inside. It had followed them out into the fire. The roof groaned under their weight, shingles slipping loose, tumbling into the smoke below. The heat scorched Marcus's palms as he steadied himself, squinting against the storm of embers that swirled in the air. The fire was everywhere now, rolling across the hillside, leaping from house to house, devouring the neighborhood in a tide of flame. Emily crouched low, holding Noah against her chest with one arm and gripping Ashley's wrist with the other. Both children coughed violently, their small bodies trembling in the choking air. Their wide, tear-streaked faces turned to Marcus, silently pleading for him to make this nightmare stop. But there was no stopping it. Only surviving it. "Stay low," Marcus rasped. His throat burned with smoke. Don't look down. Just follow me. They crawled across the slanted roof, the wood beneath them hissing with heat. Every gust of wind carried sparks that stung their skin like wasps. Marcus scanned the street below through the haze. The road was a fractured ruin, chunks of asphalt buckled, wires dangling like snakes. Cars sat abandoned, some already burning, their gas tanks exploding in muffled booms. And then, through the chaos, movement. Not fire. Not people. Coyotes. The pack prowled the street, their shapes ghostlike in the shifting smoke. Some limped, fur charred, bodies scarred from the blaze, but their eyes burned with unnatural fire. They stalked the road, pacing, waiting, their heads turning in unison toward the Collins family crawling across the roof. "They're down there," Ashley whispered hoarsely, her voice barely audible. "They're waiting for us." Emily tightened her grip. "Don't look, baby. Just don't look." Marcus's stomach twisted. The predators had followed them out into the inferno, weaving between flames like they belonged to it. The fire didn't scare them, it seemed to feed them. The roof beneath him sagged suddenly with a sharp crack. Marcus froze. The flames had eaten into the beams below. They were seconds from collapse. "Go," he shouted. "Toward the tree line." He scrambled across the shingles, pointing toward a massive oak at the back of the property. Its branches stretched over the collapsing fence toward the scorched hillside. If they could reach it, they might climb down, get to the canyon, maybe escape. Emily dragged the children forward, their limbs scraping against the blistering surface. Behind them, a section of the roof caved in, flames roaring upward in a geyser of sparks. The house was falling apart beneath their feet. "Don't stop!" Marcus bellowed, his lungs searing from smoke. They reached the edge. The oak's nearest branch hovered just feet away, but the drop beneath was a dizzying 2 stories, flames licking at the base. Marcus swung the bat across his back, wiped sweat from his brow, and turned to Emily. "You first," he ordered. She shook her head violently. "No, Marcus, you go. You can catch them." "No. You're lighter. They need you." Her eyes burned with terror, but she nodded. Emily pushed Ashley forward. "Grab on, honey. Wrap your legs tight." Ashley whimpered, clinging to the branch. Her small body slid across the bark before she steadied herself, chest heaving. Noah followed, his sobs muffled by the smoke. Emily clambered next, her arms trembling, face streaked with soot. Marcus was last. He swung onto the branch just as another section of roof collapsed behind him. Flames roared upward, scorching the air. The family inched down the trunk, sliding against the rough bark until their feet hit the scorched grass below. Marcus's boots sank into the ash, the heat radiating from the ground like an oven. That was when the pack moved. A chorus of yips and snarls erupted from the smoke. Shadows darted between burning fences, weaving toward them with terrifying speed. Eyes glowed from every direction, behind abandoned cars, beneath collapsing porches, through the swirling haze of the firestorm. "They're surrounding us!" Ashley cried, clutching Emily's waist. Marcus tightened his grip on the bat, sweat pouring down his soot-caked face. "Stay behind me. Don't run unless I say." The coyotes emerged one by one from the smoke, circling. Their bodies were skeletal, skin peeling from burns, but they moved with relentless hunger. Saliva dripped from their snapping jaws. One dragged a broken paw, yet its eyes locked on them with a predator's certainty. A low growl rose from the center of the pack. The alpha stepped forward, massive, scarred, its face half-burned, one ear missing. Its eyes glowed like molten gold. It didn't charge. It didn't need to. It just stood there, tail rigid, lips peeled back in a silent command. The others fanned out, closing the circle tighter. Emily's voice shook. "Marcus, what do we do?" He raised the bat, forcing strength into his trembling arms. We fight. The fire roared around them, the heat blistering their skin, the smoke choking their lungs. And in the burning ruins of the Hollywood Hills, the Collins family realized they had only two choices left. Burn. Or be torn apart. The fire swallowed the night. The hillside was a furnace, every tree a torch, every gust of wind a scream. The Collins family stood on scorched ground, pressed together, the circle of predators tightening around them. The smoke thickened until the world blurred, shapes flickered in and out like nightmares given flesh. The coyotes moved with precision. Their paws barely crunched the ash as they advanced, eyes glowing, teeth flashing wet in the firelight. Marcus stood in front, bat raised, every muscle burning. Emily gripped the children behind him, whispering prayers through the rattle of her breath. The Alpha stepped closer, its charred body steaming in the heat, its movements unnervingly calm. It tilted its head, and the rest of the pack stilled, their growls rumbling low, vibrating through the earth. Marcus's chest heaved. "Stay back," he shouted, his voice breaking in the smoke. "Stay the hell back." The Alpha didn't flinch. It lunged. Marcus swung with everything left in him. The bat cracked against the beast's skull with a sickening thud. The Alpha yelped, staggering, but it didn't fall. It snapped back, teeth grazing Marcus's arm, tearing cloth, drawing blood. "Marcus!" Emily screamed. The pack exploded forward. Chaos erupted. Marcus swung wildly, the bat connecting with fur, bone, snapping jaws. A coyote went down, writhing, but another leapt for his shoulder. Teeth tore into flesh. He roared in agony, slamming the bat down until the creature fell limp. Emily screamed as one lunged at her. She kicked frantically, shielding the children. Ashley grabbed a rock from the ground, striking the animal's muzzle again and again until it retreated with a shrill yelp. Noah sobbed, his voice lost in the firestorm. The circle broke for an instant, but more shadows pressed in, faster, hungrier. Their snarls drowned out the roar of the fire. Marcus staggered, blood dripping down his arm, his chest heaving. His eyes locked on Emily's. Both of them knew. They couldn't win. "Run," he shouted, spitting ash. "Emily, take them, run." "No." Emily screamed, clutching the children. "Not without you." But there was no time to argue. The Alpha lunged again. Marcus rammed the bat into its throat, buying seconds. He turned, shoving Emily hard toward the road. "Go," he roared. "Go now." Emily dragged the children through the smoke, their small bodies stumbling, coughing. Marcus stayed behind, swinging the bat until his arms shook, until the weight felt like stone. Coyotes lunged from the haze, teeth tearing at his clothes, claws raking his skin. He screamed, a raw, animal sound. And then the bat slipped from his hand. The pack surged. Marcus went down beneath a storm of fur and teeth, his cries swallowed by snarls. Blood sprayed across the ash, steam rising as it hit the burning ground. "Daddy!" Ashley's voice broke the night. Emily yanked her daughter forward, sobbing, dragging both children into the chaos of smoke. Their lungs burned, their eyes streaming, their feet slipping on cracked asphalt. The fire closed in on all sides, collapsing houses, exploding cars. Behind them, the howls rose. Not in mourning. In triumph. Emily stumbled, nearly dropping Noah, but forced herself onward. She could barely see, the smoke swallowing the world. Somewhere ahead, she thought she saw a break, a clearing, maybe a fire road. She pushed the children toward it, every step agony. But the pack was already there. Through the haze, eyes gleamed. Dozens. Too many. The coyotes had fanned out, circling them once more. They emerged from the smoke one by one, teeth bared, bodies blackened, unnatural in their endurance. Emily clutched the children against her chest, tears streaking her ash-stained face. Her voice cracked, whispering into their hair. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." The alpha limped forward, its skull dented, blood dripping from its mouth. It locked eyes with her, and for a terrible moment, the world was silent, just fire, smoke, and the cold gaze of a predator. Then it howled. The pack lunged. Screams echoed through the burning hills, mingling with the crackle of flames, rising into the night. Then silence. Only fire. Only ash. By dawn, the Collins home was nothing but charred ruins. The street was empty, lifeless. But in the smoke, paw prints crisscrossed the blackened earth. And from deep in the hills, the howling began again. The coyotes had fed. The fire had passed. And the hunt would go on.